This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a welcome back to two members of the House of Delegates. Really thank you for being on. We're having a conversation on Monday, May the 19th. There's things happening today in the House Appropriations Committee, and we'll get some report on that. And so we want our viewers to be able to place the context of our conversation that we're having this then. Delegate Steve Landis, thank you for being back on, the Vice Chair of Appropriations and the Chair of the House Education Committee, as well as other committees you serve on. Delegate Rich Anderson, who's been on before talking on military issues with a couple of your colleagues, but
right.
We'll talk on those issues and any others that you'd like to talk about. But Mr. Chairman, if you would want to start us off and even telling our viewers some about what's happening or not happening here at the Capitol.
Well, David, thanks for having us on.
Yes,
Always
thank
appreciate
you.
the opportunity. Unfortunately, we still do not have a state budget, and the House has adopted a budget, and the vehicle that we always use for budget conference is over in the Senate. We're still waiting for the Senate to send that back. I know as of this last Friday, most recently, Chairman Jones, chairman of our House Appropriations Committee, sent another letter saying that the Speaker is prepared to call the House back when the Senate will send the budget, the House Bill 5002 back over. We're ready to go to work, and those of us that are budget conferees have not had a chance to meet because we have nothing to really meet on at this point. We have said all along we've got to decouple the issue of Medicaid from the budget, get that done. We heard today a revenue report that Delegate Anderson heard as well that shows that the revenues in April were fairly good, but in May already, Secretary Brown, Secretary of Finance, told us that May is down and not looking really good, and that goes into June. That is concerning when we don't have a budget and don't have that in place at this point. So we've got what I would say are two challenges: getting the budget done, getting that in place, and then we've got this revenue that is declining that's very concerning.
Speak a bit more, if you would, either of you, on the revenue declining. Is there certain triggers or certain reasons that are speculations as to why the decline?
It's, I think, David, a combination of things. One of the things I asked about is in the area that Rich lives in, employment is very flat in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, and actually is not growing. That's where we see the economic engine of the Commonwealth from the standpoint of when Virginia is doing well, those two areas of the state are doing well. That's somewhat impacted, obviously, with sequestration, federal budget actions. But when we look at retail and some of the other areas, it's very concerning that just all over the state, The revenues are not growing at the rate that we'd like to see. In fact, our budget's based on about a 1%, 1.5% revenue increase. That's flat. If you look at an economy where we have historically grown, 5 to 6%, that's concerning.
Our viewers from your parts of the Commonwealth know who you are, but we need to let the others know, because you're talking about you're from Prince William.
Prince William County, about 30 miles south of Washington, D.C.
And Augusta County, both the Shenandoah Valley.
Right.
And so the employment not being flat, that certainly does impact.
Very flat, and likely impacted by this whole sequestration process that we have been under. During the last year of the McDonnell administration, Governor McDonnell created Virginia Commission on Military Installations and Defense Activities. I served on there with about a dozen other individuals from the public and private sector. Governor McAuliffe has made the decision to reconstitute the body. We have our first meeting early next month, and it's all targeted toward trying to mitigate the impacts of sequestration, principally in the Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads area, but also should the federal government decide to pursue a BRAC process, a base realignment and closure process in 2015 and 2017, then we're equipped to counter that. It's a competitive thing between the states because several states are hit pretty heavily, Virginia being one, California being one, Texas, Florida, Hawaii. And so there's some mechanisms in place to try to address that. But for now, as Chairman Landis indicated, revenues are flat, and principally in those two areas of the state.
So the budget that you all did pass back during the regular session carries through June 30.
Correct.
And as of today, when we're talking beyond June 30, well, I don't want to assume that there will be no budget passed before then, but should there not be, it would really be uncharted waters, as they would say.
Yeah, I know Rich and I both feel that we need to get a budget, and we need to do that important constitutional responsibility that the legislature has. And I'm still hopeful that we'll have a budget before June 30th, but we are really getting into crunch time now. We also learned today in the Appropriations Committee that when you look at constitutionally, we had two attorneys that advise us just to make sure that our assumptions were not incorrect, and that is only the General Assembly can appropriate dollars. There's very limited authority that the governor has in dealing with going and appropriating dollars or spending state dollars beyond that deadline if the biennial budget is not in place before June 30th.
So our viewers, if they haven't awakened, we hope they have, need to be encouraging the people who represent them to get a budget in place. And I know for the two of you, it would probably make your face turn a little bit red if someone said that we were looking too much like Washington, D.C. instead of looking like Richmond. And I think that would be true of people, I think, in both parties and both chambers. No one wants to look like what appears to happen or not happen on the other side of the Potomac.
Yeah, I agree with Chairman Landis, though. I believe we find a way ahead. Virginians are known for doing that. You know, as we're fond of saying, the 90 miles between Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia makes all the difference in the world, and I think we will prevail in this instance. We've got some capable individuals on the House Appropriations Committee, going from some very senior legislators all the way down to newer members like myself who just joined Appropriations this year. And my limited observation leads me to conclude that we'll figure this out.
Good. Now let's talk then about some other issues. And again, if I'd start with Mr. Chairman and thinking about even SOL reforms, and certainly some significant things were accomplished in the regular session.
We did. David, education received a lot of attention, as it normally does. We have SOL reform that we were able to adopt. The governor signed, reducing the number of tests, especially in the early grade levels. That'll be a great benefit. But we also set up a group that's going to look at alternative assessments and additional SOL reform going forward, made up of both legislators and folks that the governor will appoint with the support and help from the Department of Education. We got a new superintendent. I had a chance to meet him and Secretary Holton recently. We're going to be working together, the legislative branch and the executive branch, as we go forward. The House Education Committee is going to be looking at SOL reform. In addition to the A through F grading system we put in place, we're delaying that. The governor signed that legislation. We'll be looking at that issue, coming up with some more reasonable measures, if you will, hopefully in addition to what the original legislation had. And we're going to be looking at some higher education issues too. I know what I call the education leadership team has talked about that, and the subcommittee chairman and myself, and we look forward to working with our Democratic colleagues and counterparts. And we're going to be trying to work with our Senate colleagues on the Senate Education and Health Committee over this next year too. And really with the philosophy of being proactive, not just reactive and waiting for legislation related to education, but hopefully being kind of at the beginning of that process through the summer and the fall, and then preparing for the General Assembly session.
I heard from a friend this morning that over at Natural Bridge, that when that was being received in as a new state park, that there was a group of fifth graders there, and the governor and some of the legislators went in to speak to them and told them, we have eliminated 5 SOLs. What do you think about that? And they said the cheer that went up to the fifth graders just kind of echoed on out through the Natural Bridge areas. They were delighted to hear that.
It's a good reform. The challenge is making sure we can still measure how well the children are doing, and doing it in a way that we can measure apples to apples by school system. And we're going to be looking, and that's why it's very important that the interim work we do this year and next year, working with our school systems, is going to be very important. You know, the SOLs have done a good job. They were put in place for a good reason. We need to continue that and to make sure that we have high standards, because the kids that we have now are going to face really, really big challenges. People like Rich and I think, have been successful because of our public school system and our higher education system. We want that to occur for our young people, but they've got to compete globally, internationally, much more so than we did even when we were growing up. So we want to make sure they have a great educational opportunity.
Include some veterans issues that you'd like to update our folks on too.
Well, the General Assembly spends quite a bit of time focused on veterans issues. We have 830,000 plus veterans here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. If you do the math, that's about 1/10 of our population, so that's rather significant. For a number of years, Virginia has pursued, and I think has largely been successful in making Virginia, our Commonwealth, the most veteran-friendly location in the country. Each year we have an aggressive agenda of veterans issues and legislation that we pursue in partnership with a body called the Joint Leadership Council of Veteran Service Organizations. That's a collective body, an umbrella organization that represents 24 veteran service organizations, from the Veterans of Foreign Wars to the American Legion to the Association of the United States Army, and 24 other veterans organizations. We pursued a very aggressive agenda this year. One of the initiatives we passed, which I was very pleased with, was a constitutional amendment, and voters will see that on the ballot. And what that does is that authorizes localities to grant a property tax exemption to the surviving spouse of a uniformed member who is killed in action in the line of duty in service to our country. And so that was a very good bill that we passed. Every year we have a pretty good slate of legislation that we move through, and it's a very unifying thing for all members of the legislature.
So the constitutional amendment then would be on the ballot next year?
Yes.
Next year. I'm trying to refresh my memory on that. I think that you all have to pass it twice with a...
Right, across an election.
Across the General Assembly election.
Right,
because,
correct.
As you know, we have elections every year in Virginia of some sort.
Yeah.
But so that's moving
Gives it two
forward.
opportunities to be vetted by a wide variety of folks.
Yes. Very good. Very good. Well, you on appropriations. You got a veteran on appropriations. here, and you're a veteran.
He's a colonel, I'm a lieutenant.
So tell our viewers some, and then get the chairman to join in too on appropriations, because it's a committee that operates a great deal by the work of subcommittees, even more than most committees. So which subcommittees are you
Well, I'm
working
on two subcommittees in approps. I'm on the transportation subcommittee, which fits really well because of the congested area of Virginia where I reside. I was a guy who commuted from Prince William County 30 miles north to the Pentagon for 8 years, so I do know what congestion is. And then I also sit on the Public Safety Committee, which I enjoy quite a bit because of my uniformed background as an Air Force veteran. I get to work with the National Guard and those who wear the uniform of one kind or another in service to our Commonwealth. This is my first year on appropriations. Formerly, I was on the House Finance Committee, so now I get to see the other side of the ledger. It's a very methodical process by which we vet what ends up in the Virginia state budget, which is more than just a balance sheet. It's an articulation of what's important to the people of Virginia. And I've really valued the opportunity. This was for myself and the others who this year for the first time found ourselves on appropriations. You know, the learning curve was a little steep. It's flattened out a little bit, and hopefully in the next year or two it'll really flatten out. But I'm impressed by the methodical way that we move through to make the best choices for the people of Virginia.
And I'm impressed too by the two subcommittees you're on, because they fit right in with your other
Yeah, they
work.
do.
Because as your constituents know, you're on the House Transportation Committee, so being on that subcommittee plus the veterans.
Well, Chairman Jones, when new appointees were named this year to appropriations, he asked us what we would like to serve on. I looked down through the list, and those were the two I asked for, thinking I might get one of the two, so I was very pleased to get two. I think his plan is to try to rotate people through the duration of their legislative career through various subcommittees so that we develop a broad-based experience in all the dimensions that come together to form the final budget.
So as a veteran of appropriations, you've experienced some changes there, but how would you describe what things are going?
I think they're going extremely well. Chairman Jones has done a great job of not only giving new members and existing members great opportunities from the standpoint of subcommittee assignments, but also I think we're much more organized and working through the subcommittee system that we have. We've evolved under Chairman Putney and heading that direction. I think Chairman Jones has followed suit, and I think we've got a great working team. We also, I think, we just had a meeting today. We meet year-round, so it gives us an opportunity to know much more about the workings of state government in the interim and our role in that. You know, we are a legislative oversight committee. Not only do we put the budget together, but we also have that responsibility in making sure, whether it's our subcommittees or the full committee, that state dollars are being spent appropriately and in the manner that we have adopted in an Appropriations Act. And we work closely with the administration to assure that that happens. So we've got a great group, and I must say the new members are much more head and shoulders above. When I know Chairman Jones and I came in the same time, I felt like I knew nothing. These guys have done a great job, not only knowing a lot of the areas with Rich's background in the Air Force and being an officer, that matches up very well with public safety and then transportation for the area he represents. So it's been a great match.
What I'm impressed by is not only does the body consist of the Appropriations Committee consists of 22 seated House of Delegates members, but and we're citizen legislators, meaning we're down here as legislators 2 months out of the year and back home as citizens. We're well served by a very capable House Appropriations Committee staff that provides the continuity and the subject matter expertise that we rely on. So it's really a partnership between the elected members of the Appropriations Committee and the full-time staff that mans that committee and does the day-to-day nuts and bolts.
You know, viewers in the greater Richmond area will remember Bob Ball from Enrico when he was chair. And when he became chair, he announced on the floor of the House that the appropriations room was open and we're operating in the sunlight. And the interesting thing about that, to show the changes that have taken place in a generation, because Delegate Ball said when he was first elected, he was a businessman. He was interested in the Appropriations Committee, and so he found out where they were meeting, and he went into the meeting. And one of the members of the Appropriations Committee got him by the arm and walked him out and said, Delegate Ball, only members of the Appropriations Committee come into this room. I mean, I'm not talking about the time when you get down to crunch time and you're trying to do some negotiations and you need some private time. I mean, regular meetings were not even open to other legislators.
Lacey Putney, our former chairman, tells the story when he first got on the Appropriations Committee that even to that point, not only was there a Capitol Police officer to make sure that only members would be able to go in to the committee room, when it got down to that crunch time, when they were finally putting the budget together, only the senior members that were subcommittee chairmen were allowed in the room to do the final budget. We've have a much more open process, both for the majority party and the minority party, making sure they're included.
And some of those early years, you may remember in your other capacity of working with Delegate Pete Geeson.
Very much so. He was a member of the Appropriations Committee for many years when I worked as his legislative assistant, and he was one of the 4 members of the Republican Party that was actually on the committee at that time.
And while my history doesn't go back quite that far, but I can recall that when the 2 money committees, Appropriations, Senate Finance, would have retreats, you didn't try to find out where they were because you knew you weren't supposed to be there. If you found out, that would be true for media and everyone. But for years now, you've had open meetings.
Oh yeah, it's standing room only.
Yeah,
it really is.
Where people can, where regular citizens can come, not just ones who watch things here at the Capitol can come and sit in.
In fact, Rich mentioned the staff. Not only do they do a great job, but they have to not only serve us, but they serve the wider public and those that are interested in that process as well.
Yes. Well, now before our time passes, there's not much more time. You may be saying there was something else. I thought maybe David was going to ask me to speak on. So now it's what else would you want to tell our viewers, Steve, Rich?
Well, going back to your first question, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is we've got to have a budget. We need to separate the issue of Medicaid. We need to deal with the budget, and we need to get it done now. And I think really this week and next week, the end of May, the first part of June, we really are in that crunch time. And more importantly, David, it is our constitutional responsibility. As we learned today, governor cannot operate state government without having an Appropriations Act in place. And that impacts, and it's going to impact our local governments, higher education institutions, and all those folks that work in state government.
Rich?
That's correct. Well, I agree with what Chairman Landis had to say. Our first and foremost constitutional requirement as the legislature is to move a budget out of here and on to the governor for signature and execution. So that's where we're moving toward. The key thing here is we need to delink Medicaid from the question, pass a budget, let government proceed as the people elected us to do, and then we can come back here at the call of the governor and then roll up our sleeves and work on this Medicaid question.
So when that does get done, then you're looking forward to the 2015 session.
Right.
Either of you have a issue that you'd want to mention that you're kind of hoping to work on in the 2015 session? Anyone come to you yet, or any idea that you're working on?
One of the things, David, we've got to, and I think we learned even more so today, we want to work with the governor in getting more jobs into the Commonwealth of Virginia, whether it's to try to replace the jobs we're losing with the defense contractors in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, or just in the Valley of Virginia to help agriculture and to have those jobs out there. That's the way we increase the revenues and the benefits that the citizens will see if we can do that.
It's great. Was it China recently that reopened the market to poultry?
That's right.
From the Shenandoah Valley.
It helps the valley tremendously,
Yes.
and the poultry farmers were grateful for the governor's help on that.
Yes. Well, Delegate Landis, Delegate Anderson, thank you very much for both of you for being on This Week in Richmond again, and we look forward to having conversations with you in the future, and hope that there's good news not too far in the future.
There will be.
Thank you both very much.
Thanks,
All
David.
right, thanks. Appreciate it.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.